All right, everyone, I might get us started. Members of the public are advised that the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways, to their ongoing contributions in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. And now Councillor Egan will read out the Good Governance Pledge.
As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and environment of Nillumbik now and in the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner and to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll now introduce Alison Footer, Family and Domestic Violence Chaplain for the Salvation Army. After having moved from Western Australia just before the pandemic, Alison has been living in this community for 4 years now and is loving the supportive and caring community in which she resides. Alison's role in the Salvation Army supports the wider state of Victoria. She works largely supporting staff who hold other people's stories of trauma and works tirelessly with those who need access to their services. She also supports women and children who have experienced family and domestic violence, connecting them with communities who can support and nurture them. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you so much for having me here this evening. And I invite you, if you're comfortable to do so, to join me in prayer. God of the heavens and of the earth, we thank you for the men and the women here today who serve our community in leadership roles and for their families who support them. Please provide our leaders with reminders each day of why they decided to dedicate their lives to serving their community, and use that commitment to encourage them. Give them the stamina to approach each day and to find a balance between work and life so that they would be sustained. I ask that you provide them with the wisdom and integrity needed to approach each situation in the best way possible and for the best outcomes of our community. As our leaders work together to find solutions to difficult problems, we ask that you guide them to speak respectfully and with humility to one another. Help them to show love to those they interact with and to be an advocate for their community. Give them wisdom on how to best represent everyone, even when decisions may be difficult. May they continue boldly on. Amen.
Thank you, Alison. The next item is apologies. We have no apologies tonight, and so we'll move on to declarations of conflicts of interest. I'll just look for any conflicts of interest. Carl? Oh, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest with the item Notice of Motion 00124, Notice of Motion Councillor Expenses, Legal Advice Support.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. And Carl?
And through the Chair, item 16 on the agenda, confidential reports, a general conflict of interest in the CEO employment matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. All right, that moves us on to presentations, and we do have a condolence to read out for Judy Lambert, and I'll let Councillor Perkins read that out for us.
Thank you, Councillor Antrim. Condolence, Judy Lambert. We're deeply saddened to hear of the recent passing of Judy Lambert. Judy lived and worked in Hurstbridge and Diamond Creek for many years and was a founding director of the Occasional Childcare Centre in Diamond Creek. She was employed by Diamond Valley Shire in November 1983, operating occasional care out of the Masonic Hall. Judy successfully steered the growth of the centre and remained in her position of leadership for 33 years. She was the driving force behind the philosophy of our community-based not-for-profit childcare centres and was solely responsible for the centre's growth and evolution in response to the needs of the community. Judy was a passionate advocate for the rights of early childhood educators and all children. Her vision was to create a unique centre for families to access flexible, innovative childcare, and she was well known for her ability to think outside the square, which set her aside from others in the early childhood sector. Judy was dedicated to advocating for those unable to defend themselves, and her compassion for those in need and experiencing hardship was unwavering. She made a truly significant positive difference to the families whose lives she touched. Judy is also passionate about the principles of inclusion and social justice. In embracing family, she ensured that all children had further opportunities no matter what the circumstances. Even after her retirement at the end of 2016, Judy was an active mentor of her former colleagues and a source of respected advice. Judy's experience and wisdom was valued and often sought by others. As a respected and admired member of the community childcare sector, Judy served on a myriad of committees, networks and working groups. She was a ready support to any who crossed her path, requiring help or encouragement. Our thoughts are with Judy's family and her many friends. Val Judy Lambert.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. The next item is confirmation of minutes, and I'll just look for a mover to confirm the minutes. Councillor
Happy
Payne.
to move the confirmation of minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. As per the papers?
As per the papers, yes.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne?
No.
Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. That is carried unanimously. We have no petitions tonight, but we do have some questions from the gallery. The first question is from Dean Hurlston, who submitted 2 questions tonight. Question 1. What amount of waste enforcement costs in the current financial year 23-24 has the council included in its waste levies charged to residents, if any? And the response is there are no enforcement costs included in the waste management charge. Question 2. What amount of revenue has council included in the current financial year 23-24 from waste enforcement actions? And the response is no revenue has been included from infringements generated from waste enforcement. We have a question from Nicholas Mitzios. Question 1. Regarding the proposed childcare at 729 Main Road, the refusal of the council to act in good faith at the compulsory conference has been poor. Why has council not even given any guidance of what they would like? And the response is officers engaged with the project team to discuss the proposal during 2 major pre-application meetings prior to the application being lodged. These pre-application meetings occurred in June 2022 and September 2022, and comprehensive advice from the relevant council teams was provided during these discussions. The planning permit application was lodged in March 2023 without following the guidance provided during the pre-application meetings. The guidance provided during the course of the application was consistent with the pre-application discussions. Officers attended the compulsory conference in February and outlined the matters previously discussed. During the course of the compulsory conference, it was acknowledged that the proposed childcare centre use was not in contention, rather it was the design response required to achieve the urban design and landscaping outcomes sought for the site that remained unresolved. Question 2. Following from the above question, is there an ulterior motive? Has council been against this project from the beginning and have not assisted nor helped come up with a solution? We would have thought a brand new childcare would add to the local area and the needs of the community. And the response is, the site strategy supports a modest childcare centre use. However, the design response required to achieve the urban design and landscaping outcomes for the site remained unresolved during the course of the application. And we have a question from Vincent Sicari from Eltham High School. You can't interject from the gallery. Thank you. Not during a public meeting. You're welcome to contact any of us by email outside of council meetings. You can find all of our email addresses on the council website, and you can contact us outside of a council meeting. By email or phone, you're more than welcome to do so, but during the council meetings we don't take interjections from the gallery. The next question is from Vincent Sakari. No. You can contact councillors by email or phone outside of a council meeting. This is not the forum in which to do it. If you continue to interject, I will ask you to leave. Question from Vincent Sakari. I would like to know from council as to when the agreed to pedestrian crossing to be developed at the T intersection of Susan Street and Withers Way will come to fruition, seeing that it is 4 years so far in the making. Or do we have to wait until a fatality occurs for the council to action this? A letter providing background information was emailed on Friday the 22nd of March to the CEO, the Mayor, the local council member and others. And the response is, officers have received the written correspondence from Eltham High emailed on Friday the 22nd of March and are currently considering the matters raised. As the matter is currently being investigated, officers will be in touch with the school to arrange a face-to-face meeting. And that is all the questions we have tonight. The next item is reports of advisory committees, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. The Council notes the minutes of the Advisory Committee meetings reported in Attachment 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre? Councillor Payne? Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is Audit and Risk Committee meeting from February 2024. I will look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on 19th of February 24, Attachment 1, and the rest as per the papers because it's rather long.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I will look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Nothing much to say here, really. This is basically the minutes of the last Audit and Risk Committee meeting that we did hold in February. The items we discussed are listed in point 3, and that's about it. The next one will be in June. Nothing much to say. It's business as usual.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the draft leasing and licensing policy. I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne.
Just a recap to let people know that this, the draft leasing and licensing policy proposes no changes to the Council's existing practice or fee structure. The intent is to update the policy and ensure its currency and formalise Council's current practices.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Stockman? No, sorry, didn't know if that was a hand up. I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the draft Nillumbik Urban Tree Canopy Strategy for community consultation, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Yes, I'm happy to move that. As per the papers, there's quite a lot to go through, so
As per the papers, thank you. I'll look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I will be brief. This urban tree canopy strategy is going to be sent out for community consultation. I encourage people in the community to have a look at the strategy, to make comments, to improve it if they think that's necessary. Just some highlights with the research that has been undertaken by council officers. Nillumbik has the second highest urban tree canopy within the state. We are in the Green Wedge. We want to make sure that's protected. Whilst that's a great thing to have the second highest urban tree canopy. The other thing that officers have identified in their research is that there's an overall decline in our urban tree canopy cover over time. This is something that we need to rectify because we want to continue to be the lungs of Melbourne. Within the strategy, we've noted that 36% of trees occur on private land, so please, people, look after the trees on your property. 45% of the other tree canopy is on public land owned by council or the state and federal government. One of the things that is in the definition of the urban tree canopy is that it is defined as any woody vegetation that's over 2 metres. So that includes indigenous plants, vegetation and native and exotic species. So if you're thinking that you want to see more trees and less shrubs, please make sure that your comments are made known to council because this is the definition of what a tree is, a woody vegetation over 2 metres. I'll let the community go through the document themselves. I think one of the things that's really important here is to look at the section C with the action on council land and the cost to remove trees. There's an average of $5,500 to remove a tree that is in decline or ill health. That's a lot of money in comparison to the money that's spent in planting trees. So we know that trees are more than just provide amenity to our environment. Just a couple of things that I've discovered in my researching of this, because protecting our tree canopy is super important to me and to many of the people that have spoken to me in coming to council. It was one of the items that I promised the community upon in my campaigning to become a councillor, that it was one of the areas that I was wanting to protect. And it was a notice of motion last year that has kind of resulted in this tree canopy being, the strategy being put together in parallel with our biodiversity strategy. Just a couple of facts about an increase in trees with urban spaces. A 10% increase in tree canopy is associated with a 10.3 decrease in battery in terms of reducing crime. There's also studies to say that a 10% increase in tree canopy is associated with a 11.3% less assault and robbery. When it comes to depression, we know that street trees can help reduce the need for antidepressants amongst city dwellers, and there's research to back that up. There are scientific reports that have stated that by finding that if we have 10 trees or more in a city block, on average, this improves the health perception in ways comparable to an increase in annual personal income of an extra $10,000. And moving to a neighbourhood where you've got $10,000 or higher median income, or being 7 years younger in your age. So trees have a mental health impact, a physical health impact, and they have an impact on crime rates. There's also studies to show that by having 11 trees or more in a city block on average decreases cardiometabolic conditions in ways comparable to an increase in the annual income of a person of $20,000, and moving to a neighbourhood with an extra $20,000 higher median, or being a year and a half younger. So these are scientists and researchers that have come up with these figures. It's not just me, but I think the most important one here is looking at the urban heat island effect and the efforts that we need to look at to make sure that our spaces are going to be cool so that we can live comfortably no matter what our age moving into the future. So that's just a few points. Please, I encourage the community to get on board and to really give us your feedback on this very important strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Natalie's more than covered what this particular item is about, but what I did want to clarify, because I know I will get emails, and especially from people who aren't watching tonight, this is to do with land inside the urban growth boundary, not outside. It will not affect the 1030 rule or the 1050 rule. So please, people, I don't want 57,000 emails on that subject that council's gone and removed all of our fire mitigation issues, because it's happened before. So just clarifying that particular point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll speak to this one briefly. I'm very excited to see this finally coming up. It's something a lot of us have been talking about since not long after we got elected. And so to see it finally starting to come to fruition is a really good feeling. I'd like to thank members of our Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committee, not just the current committee, which is already coming to an end, and we'll be seeing a new committee coming in shortly, but also the previous committee, which is where the idea for this actually came from. We had members of the previous committee who came to councillors and spoke of the importance of having this strategy and really helped us to get the ball rolling to make this happen. So I'm really grateful for the work that's been done by both of those Environment and Sustainability Advisory Committees and the thought and effort that they've put into advising us during the development of this strategy. We know in Nillumbik that our tree canopy is one of our key features. It's one of the key reasons people choose to live here. Our community loves it. They love having a leafy green neighbourhood. And Councillor Duffy mentioned before all the incredible health benefits that we get from having an urban tree canopy. And people come here for that. And so, as a council, we have the responsibility to protect our urban tree canopy. We know it is under threat. It is declining. Threats from development, illegal clearing, and simply climate change and the health of the trees as well. We have to keep trees healthy. We have to make sure that we have the right planning controls in place in those urban areas to protect trees where appropriate. And we need to make sure that there are appropriate tree planting programs available as well. And so I think the strategy touches on all that very well. It's a long document, but I encourage everybody out there to read the draft and have your say during the community consultation. I'm really looking forward to seeing what everybody has to say on this one. So with that, I will put this item to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the endorsement of Nillumbik Shire Council submission to the local government reforms. And I will look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion, Mayor Ramcharan. A recommendation that the Council adopts the submission as per attachment 2 to the Local Government Reforms 2024 consultation paper.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne?
Thank you, Mayor Ramcharan. So basically, this is a suite of reforms to the Local Government Act in response to state government interventions across many of Victoria's 79 councils, having to appoint monitors, administrators, and engaging in time-consuming and resource-depleting interventions. There's three basic parts to the submissions that they're talking about. Better training for councillors when they come in so they understand exactly what their responsibilities are. Dispute resolution so that costly and time-consuming legal action can be resolved earlier on. And sanctions, of course, to encourage better behaviour in our councillors. So I support the idea that we need to reform the way councils behave and council laws behave, particularly to the community, to each other and to council officers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's sad that we have to actually do this and that councillors aren't behaving as they should be, but such is life and we have to deal with it, and this is how it's being dealt with. The one thing that I was quite happy to see were the improvements, or I suppose the additions to new councillors coming in, because I'm sure this current term of councillors know what a big undertaking it is. It takes you a term to get to know the job, and by the second term then you sort of start to know your way around. So I think the additions of these particular things will be quite good for whoever gets elected in the next term. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre?
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to what Councillor Payne and Councillor Egan were saying too, is that there were a number of sessions where councillors could come and give feedback. So this is not the only avenue that we were given to provide feedback, and I attended one of those sessions, as I think some of the other councillors did as well. So it was well delivered in the way that councillors could provide that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
I support all efforts to make the local government sector more transparent and for the conduct of councillors and council officers to be exemplary, as should be expected by the communities we represent and serve. I support reforms to strengthen council leadership, capability and councillor conduct. Mandatory training, refresher training and model conduct codes across the sector is a good thing for everyone. This should include a best practice standard councillor staff interaction policy akin to that of the City of Yarra, which provides a matrix of interactions so there is clarity and no unintentional misunderstandings. The current formal councillor conduct framework relies on councillors as individuals, groups or as a whole of council to report on each other. This can create distrust and disunity. These formal processes can be daunting for all involved, councillors and officers alike. Having been a party to an internal arbitration process last year, I feel qualified to have an opinion on the Minister's reform ideas and have felt the impact of the formal disciplinary process. I've made an individual submission to the Executive Director of Local Government Victoria and the Minister with a view to ensure that no other councillor ever must experience what I have as an elected representative at Nillumbik Shire Council, either at Nillumbik or anywhere else in Victoria or Australia. My hope is that the proposed reforms do not have unintended consequences that make things worse for councillors. I feel that good councillors can be targeted through the conduct process. The conduct process can be open to being misused. CEOs currently can report misconduct through the Local Government Inspectorate, which I think is sufficient considering there are no established procedures in the Local Government Act or best practice guidelines that CEOs are required to follow. Whilst I fully support having a robust framework for managing conduct, I have witnessed firsthand how this can be abused for political and unknown reasons, and I've witnessed the harm that can be inflicted when the in-house and the external formal councillor conduct framework is used unjustly and when no support is provided to navigate this. It is apparent that there are many councillors across the state who have shared traumatic ordeals through this process. Some conduct cases feel unfair. In many cases, this is true. It is also apparent that the behaviour of some councillors is poor and should not be permitted. In all cases, the processes need to be fair and provide natural justice. Evidence of the internal direct negotiation must become part of an application to the Principal Conduct Register. The Council Conduct Framework, the internal arbitration process and council conduct panels are formal disciplinary processes with legal consequences. These consequences could include letters of apology, periods of suspension, right through to fines of $20,000, $50,000 up to $99,000 or even up to 5 years in jail. There are many points in the Nillumbik submission I agree with. However, when the consequences of misconduct can be so severe, it is important that councillors have access to legal indemnity. The Nillumbik submission proposes to remove that legal indemnity. Why would anyone want to be a councillor if you are open to accusations of any nature, true or false, in the course of your work and then required to self-fund your legal defence of these allegations? I commend the Minister for Local Government and her department on all efforts to improve integrity in local government. And since being elected as councillor at Nillumbik, I have worked tirelessly to bring integrity to all my decisions and actions as a councillor. I will not be supporting the Nillumbik submission.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Yeah, much along the same lines as Councillor Duffy, I won't be supporting this submission by council, and specifically around the part where we're supporting councils must not indemnify councils in relation to the internal arbitration process and council conduct panel processes. Our submission says in part, the current practice of councils indemnifying councillors for legal expenses related to the internal arbitration process or council conduct panel proceedings has been problematic due to the complex nature of how these matters can be resolved. The whole process of the internal arbitration process and the council conduct panel, particularly the internal arbitration process from what I've seen, needs a major shake-up, and it's certainly not a good process. And particularly where these are new processes, and you know, certainly I could put my hand up and say was not totally across how these processes could be used or how they indeed play out. I think it's a very messy process. I think anyone who's been involved in those processes would agree, and I think it is reasonable for a councillor to argue that their legal advice that they seek independently of council when they're being taken to an arbitration process by a fellow councillor, it's reasonable that council should consider whether or not they be reimbursed those costs. That's all I'm arguing here, is that it should be up to council to determine whether or not the councillor is reimbursed for that legal advice. We're not talking about representation. We're not talking about having a barrister come along and argue your case for you at the council conduct panel. We're talking about seeking independent legal advice from a third party that is quite separate from council. Now, make no judgment about our governance officers or our governance advice. They work very well, but I think it's reasonable that some might think that they're influenced by the administration. So I think the ability to get independent legal advice as a councillor should be considered by council in terms of potentially reimbursing those costs. That's all I'm arguing. What we're doing here is putting in a submission that takes that ability away from council to actually make that decision. And, you know, is this submission going to mean anything at the end of the day? I don't think so. I think the government's made up their mind in terms of what they're going to do. Councils and councillors are traditionally and in an ongoing way portrayed as being, you know, dodgy or not worth having, or, you know, we're in the public realm, we're treated very, very unfairly. I think broadly, I've been on council a long time, and you wonder why people do want to be a councillor with the way that councillors are treated by government and by the broader community. So I'm not going to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on that before Councillor Payne's right of reply. Look, I will be supporting the motion. I think it's a fantastic submission. I'd like to thank our governance team for the amount of work that they've put into it. We weren't given very long to put the submission together, but it's very thorough, very detailed, and very well written. So I will be supporting the motion. In terms of the part around indemnifying councillors for code of conduct complaints, that was actually a suggestion that had already been made. It's part of the Minister's review. It's a suggestion that's come out from the review. All our submission says is that we agree to the Minister's suggestion to change that policy. It's about providing clarity and clearing up an area that's quite ambiguous. The whole point of internal arbitration is that the system is designed so that lawyers aren't needed. The internal arbitration process is just that. It's arbitration. It's not a court. It's not a judgment. It's an arbitration. And unless the arbiter says that a lawyer should be involved, which is, I expect, very rare, but if the arbiter does say that a lawyer may be present, then it would be allowed, under the Minister's recommendation, it would be allowed for councils to reimburse a councillor for hiring that lawyer. But if the arbiter does not allow lawyers, which is the standard because the process is designed specifically to be able to run without lawyers being involved, then what the Minister's suggestion is, and what our submission agrees to, is that council would not indemnify councillors if the arbiter has not allowed the use of lawyers. It's that simple. An arbiter will allow a lawyer to be brought into the process if it's considered that doing so is necessary to make the process fair. And so I think it's a fair outcome, and it's a fair suggestion from the Minister, and I am happy to see council supporting that, because why should councils have to pay money to hire a lawyer for a process where lawyers are generally not part of that process? I'll leave it there and I'll pass over to Councillor Payne for a right of reply.
Thank you. I think Councillor Perkins is absolutely correct. I think these reforms are going to happen. And I just wanted to remind everyone that provisions are made in the legislation to take individual councillor circumstances into account. But it is important for councillors, both current and incoming this year, that they are responsible for their behaviours and need to be held accountable for them. And that's what these reforms are all about.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. We will move on. The next item is Amendment C1490, Heritage Review panel report and approval. And I'll look for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. This is quite a lengthy one. I think I'll be going by the papers. Thank you.
As per the papers?
As per the
Thank
papers,
you,
yes.
Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Well, this has been an extremely long project, and with a lot of work undertaken to get the project to this stage. The planning panel was supportive of the amendment as a whole, with the planning panel noting that council's methodologies are appropriately robust, apply established contemporary practice and are consistent with the guidelines contained within Planning Practice Note 1, which is applying the heritage overlay PPN 01. So all submissions were considered by the planning panel, so they met, they were heard, they visited properties, and the panel is supportive of council's changes following the exhibition, as well as the application to the heritage overlay to the remaining places it has considered in response to submissions. The heritage amendment is important for helping to preserve the heritage values across our shire, and we know how our residents really love and our community love our shire. This is just one more component that we would like to protect and preserve. And I just want to say thanks to all the council officers who have been involved in this long journey, this project, over many years, and it's great to get it to this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan.
Thank you. Yes, like Councillor Eyre, I'm glad this is going to be finally put to bed, so to speak. I was very pleased to see that 6 of the properties have been deleted from the overlay. A couple in my ward in particular, where I think sometimes that the net's thrown far too widely. One particular place in my ward, I've got a chook shed that's in better condition than that particular property. So some of them were just, in the words of the castle, dreaming in terms of the conditions of the property. It's all very well to have a property that has some historical value, but if it's financially totally unviable to restore a property, residents can't be expected to pay for that. So I'm very pleased to see the 6 particular properties deleted. Yes, we do love our history, especially in Nillumbik. So it's great to see this finally wrapped up. It has been a long, drawn-out process that goes back to my first term in council. So great to see, and it's been a lot of work by the planning team and other teams. So well done on finally completing this. It's great to have it finished.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look. Any other councillors? Councillor Perkins.
Yes, certainly support this motion. It has been a lot of work from a lot of people over many years, particularly the heritage consultants, and I think the report forms a very, very important historical archive, and I trust all these citations will find their way to local historical groups and be widely circulated. Notice Jim Connor is pointing to his bag. I think he already has one from the Eltham Historical Society, but certainly in the Diamond Creek context at least, very, very interesting history around and about my ward in Diamond Creek. And one place that, as long as I've been in Diamond Creek, wondered why it didn't have a heritage overlay. Well, as long as I knew about heritage overlays anyway, which goes back 14 years or 15 years, as long as I've been on council, I wondered why the former Catholic church on the top of the hill as you enter Diamond Creek never had a heritage overlay. Very, very significant building right next to the Anglican church, which is a heritage overlay. The former butcher, A.D. Ryan's, is a heritage overlay. So a bit of a historical precinct there, but the former Sacred Heart Church in Diamond Creek never had heritage overlays. So whilst I wouldn't lay claim to singling out many properties in my ward, suggesting that they should be considered or evaluated for a heritage overlay, I can certainly say that they initiated that one. And that was about 10 years ago. So it's taken a long time to get the funding to do the original heritage assessment, and then it's taken even longer really to get to this point. So I can read why is the former Church of the Sacred Heart at 49 to 55 Main Street, Diamond Creek, why is it significant? Really, just as a summary, the heritage statement says the former Church of the Sacred Heart at 49 to 55 Main Street is of historic and aesthetic significance to the Shire of Nillumbik. The former Church of the Sacred Heart is historically significant to the Shire of Nillumbik as a remaining early building that demonstrates the growth of Diamond Creek through the 19th century. Constructed between 1872 and 1874, the site demonstrates the importance of church life in early rural communities at that time. Along with the neighbouring Anglican church, the prominent position on a hill near the centre of town is evidence of this. The subject site is also of historical interest for its associations with the prolific church architect J.B. Denny, who was greatly influenced through his direct work with the prominent architects Augustine Pugin and William Wardell. Denny was also responsible for overseeing the construction of many of Victoria's early churches, as well as being responsible for designing a substantial amount himself. The former church that we're speaking about is aesthetically significant to the Shire of Nillumbik. The building demonstrates particularly skillful application of the Gothic Revival style in a modest church building. The site is a particularly picturesque example of the style on the Shire, which enhanced by its steep combination hip and gable roof, chamfered corners, small vestry and substantial chimney. The citation goes on and on for many, many, many pages, and it's a bit more interesting perhaps than some of what I've read, but well worth reading, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. They're all well worth reading. Councillor, any other councillors? Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. Yes, there's a lot of work that's gone into this, and capturing the story and the history of our place is important. I support this, the work that's taken place. I also do appreciate the changes that have been made, where there have been some places that have been taken out of the heritage report, and there have been other parcels of land that have been curtailed, so that it's not the whole property, but it's just, you know, one block of land where a house might be. I won't go into all of the details. I'll let people read the report. There is a lot to learn. But one of the items I would like to speak to you very briefly is just about the Eltham War Memorial Complex on Main Road. It's great to see that this is getting local heritage significance. This is something, a place that many in our community feel strongly about, have lots of connections with it for over 70 years or so. This particular complex of buildings was the vision of women, and it was as a result, women of the Shire came together wanting to have a place where they could go and meet to remember their loved ones that were involved in the Second World War. The First World War in Eltham, there was a cenotaph already. There was a place that men would go and meet, but they specifically wanted a place where they could go and remember, a place for the little ones. And so it became a childcare centre, a toy library and a maternal health centre. And, you know, all of these years later, it's still forming that place. It's a meeting place, and there is a meeting place for children. There is a childcare, a preschool still there in operation by the council. The buildings are still public, and there is history to be enjoyed in that location. So it's great to see the local significance, because there were a number of people in our community who fought hard for this location when the block of land was identified for potential development in the past. So I'll leave people to read the story about that. These buildings are just buildings. Part of history is capturing our stories. And during the week, I was down at the Eltham North Reserve at the oval that they play cricket on. There were two gentlemen that were there. We got in conversation, and these gents had lived in Eltham North 50 years ago. They live in elsewhere now. But they were telling the story of the land, and they were talking about their childhood memories, and they were talking about Mr. Murray, who owned a lot of the land. There's Murray's Place. They talked about Banks Road across the road, and they said, oh, did you know it was called Banks Road because the Miss Banks used to live in the house up on the corner, and they explained the house, which is no longer there, that's been redeveloped. But these two women, they both lived to the age of 100. They both respectively died 2 weeks after their 100th birthday as sisters. But they were the nieces, the direct nieces of Sir Joseph Banks, who was the botanist that came out with the First Fleet to capture much of the story of our nature, to report that back to the government.
If you could wrap up there, Councillor Duffy.
There's a lot in history that gets captured, and this report is one way of capturing that.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Quarterly Risk and Safety Report for December 2023, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion as per the papers, Mayor Ramcharan.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne.
Just to quickly thank Jeremy Livingston and Craig Kamain, council officers, for the work that they do. The Risk and Safety Report is simply about responsible risk management and about putting people first, and long may it continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Mayor. Really just to also note that if we were to look at incidents by type and by directorate overall, there's been a big reduction since, if we look at the reporting cycle, January to December 22, comparing to January to December 23, there's been a big reduction, which is fantastic. Obviously, we don't want to have lots of incidents, and they range in all different things. So everything from tree management to, if we've had, we had the floods and things like that. So it's covering those kind of incidences as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Instrument of Delegation to the Chief Executive Officer, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Yes, this is simply for council to sort of approve the delegation of what our CEO does in terms of his powers and duties and functions. It revokes all previous instruments of delegation that have previously happened, and it's sort of business as usual, but basically it allows our CEO to go about his business up to a certain point financially. That's about it. Nothing much to say, really.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
I concur.
Easy. Any other councillors? All right, I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. All right, I'll move us on to the next item, which is the Instrument of Delegation from Council to Council Staff. And I'll look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'd like to move as per the papers again.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
This is very similar to the motion I've just put forward, but this one refers to what we let council staff do. So very similar issues, business as usual. It gives the staff the power to do what they need to do to get things done in council.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
I reiterate my enthusiasm for this motion.
Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. The next item is the Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation under the Planning and Environment Act. And I'll look for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
I'm losing my words tonight. I'll go by the papers. Thank you.
As per the papers?
As per the papers. Sorry, I keep losing my right.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. This has come up a number of times. In fact, I think maybe over the last 4 or 5 council meetings. So on this occasion, we have new staff members that we need to have authorised, and an instrument of authorisation is required to be endorsed by council in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, meaning that council must appoint authorised officers for the purposes of enforcing and administering the Planning and Environment Act 1987. Thank you. So it's, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan?
I concur.
A lot of concurring tonight. It's good. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the Regional Assessment System Service Extension, and I'll look for a motion. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move the motion. The recommendation that Council resolves to divest of the Regional Assessment Service at the conclusion of the existing funding agreement on 30 June 2024, unless a viable extension offer is forthcoming, in which case Council will divest of the service on the 31st of December 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
So, in summary, this is an extension of the contract we have to deliver the RAS service. It is meant to be winding up in June. It will be extended to the 31st of December, and we are agreeing to that. We're not sure exactly what the new service will look like, but we are agreeing to the extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Not much more to add except to reassure the public that the services won't change. In fact, in all likelihood, they will improve. We just don't have the funding to continue them like a lot of other councils. Our funding's going down, and what we have to do as a council is going up, so things have to give. But in this case, I'm really happy to see that where it's moving to under the Department of Health will continue to look after our aged people in the Shire, so they should have no fear that things won't keep getting provided.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
Hi. Sometimes there's a lot of buzzwords that are used, and when you look at regional assessment system, you know, what does that really mean? But, you know, to the everyday person, this is actually about assisting people that are over 65 with aged care services. So, you know, in the report there's information, there's recommendations as well. You know, I always struggle when there are jobs that council does that we no longer deliver. I understand the situation is, in this instance, that this contract is going to be ending on the 24th of, on the 30th of June, and that council will divest of this completely by the end of December. And it's simply, as Councillor Egan had said before, there is another approach that is being put forward. There are tenderers, people who have put in tenders to deliver this service, and we will find out in due course who will be delivering this service on a regional basis for the northern part of Melbourne, which we belong. And I have confidence that there will be you know, a very robust process in determining the right people to provide this service to people, to those that need it in the future. So in this instance, you know, it's a shame that council won't be involved in this directly, but there will be still people at council that will be pointing people in the right direction. So I think that's all I wanted to say, so that people understand exactly what regional assistance service is. It's home support assessments to assess people for eligibility for entry-level living at home services through their Commonwealth funded packages. It's all very complicated and stressful for anybody at this stage of life to be able to get the assistance that they need. So we really need experts to be able to help people navigate this system, to reduce the stress and to increase the time. And the federal government has got this high on their agenda to improve this for everybody. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. Yes, so as Councillor Duffy said, this and all other councillors, is that our residents will certainly still be looked after. This is not something that council put forward and said we're going to divest of this. It comes from the 2019 Royal Commission into aged care quality and safety, and so the Australian government committed to establish a single assessment system and workforce to simplify access for people entering the aged care system. And I certainly know quite a few people who have been using the system and find it quite tricky to navigate. And I think that, and I'm not saying that that's Nillumbik, I'm saying that's across the board. And so by having a single assessment system means that there will be greater continuity of care. I think that our older residents will be, well, I'm hoping that they will be looked after in a better system where they don't need to keep repeating themselves because there's crossovers and things like that. So I think that there's so much potential with this, and that residents certainly will not just be left to fend for themselves. There will be appropriate support from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on this one as well, because I think this really is an important service. It's about assessing people aged over 65 for access to the Commonwealth Government's funded aged care services. And so it's a service that really does need to be provided to our community. Sometimes when people need aged care services, they need it quickly, they need it promptly. They need to be assessed in a timely manner so that they can go on and get the support that they need without having many, many delays. And so that's what this system's about. And I'm proud that Council, up until now, has been able to provide that service to our community. It's a really important service. The Commonwealth Government are really reassessing the way that the service will be provided. There seems to be a move away from local councils providing it and to having that single assessment service where it's much more centralised and hopefully will run a lot better. That's yet to be seen, but I think we're all very hopeful that the service will be improved after this review. And while Council won't be providing it anymore, and that is a shame, I think this is the right decision to make because we really do need adequate funding from the federal government in order to run the service, and if we're not getting that, then we can't provide it to the best of our abilities. And so if we do divest from the service, then hopefully the new system will work a lot better and people will be able to get that timely access to aged care that they really, really need. So I'll put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the tender report for the Ryan's Reserve Rejuvenation Project, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. Very happy to move that Council accepts the tender submitted by the preferred tenderer for some plus another sum for contingency, inclusive of GST, and enter into the following contract. The contract details are there. We just need to ensure that we change the term. It was wrong in the agenda and the report, but the term is actually from the 27th of March 2024 to the 31st of October 2024. Number 2 as per the papers, and I think there was another change on the next page. Number 3 and 4 as per the papers. And number 5 notes the change to the term date to 27th of March 2024 to 31st of October 2024 in the tender evaluation report as per attachment 1.
And the rest as per the papers, Councillor Perkins?
Yes, thank you. The rest as per the papers.
I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Duffy? Councillor Perkins?
Yes, happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Perkins?
Look, this is probably one of the best things that's happened to Diamond Creek this year, is awarding this tender. Long time coming. I know when I first got onto council, I was approached by residents in the area, and what they wanted most of all, there was a small playground there, but what they wanted most of all in that area was a toilet where kids could play, elderly parents could play or just sit in the passive open space of that park and sit there for a while and not have to rush home or drive home because they needed to go to the toilet. There was occurrences, and there has been ever since, and probably still to this day, of all sorts of rubbish, nappies being deposited in the bushland adjacent. The toilets has been the number one thing that the community's been asking for, but we put in a Growing Suburbs Fund application, and it was a very good application with a lot more included in the concept than just toilets, and we were successful. So we received the sum of almost $1.2 million from the state government through the Growing Suburbs Fund. So that kicked it off. Council's contributing $362,000. So it's a total playground rejuvenation to the whole area. to the tune of about $1.5 million. Council chipping in about 33%. Actually, that's 23%. The 77% and the majority from the state government. So just like the Diamond Creek Regional Playground, of which council didn't contribute anything to, it was a $2.5 million playground. The state government came up with the whole amount for that. It's an absolute bonus for the whole of Nillumbik, but most particularly Nillumbik, because it's largely not funded by ratepayers. It is an area of growth in the Nillumbik context, and traditionally the playgrounds in Diamond Creek have been sadly lacking. But this is really going to be the jewel in the crown, I think, for Diamond Creek. It's surrounded by fairly high intensity residential dwelling, and I think over time, the way things are going, there will be more and more people moving to Diamond Creek. Good for some, perhaps not for those that don't like change, but change is inevitable, I think, in this space. But the playground will help to support those new and those growing families that are there now and will come to Diamond Creek into the future. I also hope to see some traffic improvements along Broad Gully Road. That's certainly a busy road holding a lot of traffic, and we'll keep that on the agenda to improve the traffic mitigation works along Broad Gully Road. There's conflict with school, the Diamond Creek Trail. There's a fair bit of activity right through there, and a lot of traffic travelling through Diamond Creek up to the newer growth areas to the north. I'll make sure that there's an updated plan put on Participate Nillumbik for the people that want to see the final plan. I was just looking at Participate Nillumbik, and there's a final concept plan, but I think the plans have been developed a little bit more even since that. So I'll ensure our Director of Infrastructure, Vince, he's always listening, he's always here, so he'll make sure that happens. I suppose the dates are important too. Work will start for the tender on the 28th of February, and the playground should be finished by the 31st of October. I'd certainly like to be around to be involved at the opening as a councillor. I understand there's going to be elections later this year, perhaps in October. Not sure of the date. Eagerly waiting to hear the date of the council elections, but yeah, hopefully it'll be a celebration never seen before in Diamond Creek. So yeah, certainly I know this motion will get support because it's a late MSR, but it's very exciting news for Diamond Creek. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Duffy?
Thank you. It is always exciting to receive funding from other places to be able to do the project work that we'd like to do here. I think it's fabulous that this is going into a reserve and the rejuvenation work is taking place, and the people in the area will be able to enjoy the improvements, as will other people that can go there as a destination playground. You know, it's also great that Councillor Perkins has been on council long enough to be able to keep pushing for this project and to know intimately what was required and asked for by the community all those years ago, and to see it through. So congratulations to you, Councillor Perkins, on working hard with council officers to see this come to this point. I suppose I'd like to give a plug for, you know, the Diamond Creek Reserve that the community fought hard to save just down here in Monomeath Avenue. It was one of those reserves that was pitted to be sailed under the last council, and there are people in that neighbourhood who purchased properties at the time, some of these 15, 16, 20 years ago, where they were promised a playground on that block of land, and they're still waiting. So I'm hoping that at some point the requests of the community can make it into the formal strategy to be included in the Nillumbik Lifetime Play Strategy, so that, you know, those people too in Diamond Creek who've been promised and looking forward to a playground are able to get even the basics, even if it's just a basketball hoop and a little fence around it and a seat so they can sit down. It doesn't cost a lot of money, but these things make where we live more enjoyable. So this is a great project with a lot of money behind it. There are also lots of smaller projects that we're looking at funding in this upcoming budget, if those budget figures are, the allocations are approved. So watch out for play spaces getting rejuvenated around the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. And we will now name the successful tenderer. Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. The successful tenderer was Rainscapes Proprietary Limited, and the sum the tendered sum was $1,308,203.31, plus an additional $196,230.50 for the contingency, and that's inclusive of GST. So congratulations to Rainscapes Proprietary Limited. Look forward to watching your work progress.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. The next item is the tender report for Microsoft licensing solution providers.
Happy
And
to
I will
move
look
that,
for
Mayor.
a motion. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I'd like to move this as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. This is a business as usual contract. Council relies on technology, Microsoft. This is a Microsoft licensing solution. Every 3 years, this contract comes up. There's been a tender evaluation process that's gone through the day-to-day works with our officers that handle this. So I would just like to support the work that the officers do in keeping us moving with technology at council, and support this action to update our Microsoft licensing solution. In the report, it does talk about procurement, working with other councils, so under the Municipal Association of Victoria. So this one really, there's not a lot to see. It's just business as usual, and it's coming to council for a decision because the amount is higher than the normal delegations of the CEO in the day-to-day business. We heard earlier in the meeting about that in previous agenda items, so not much more to say.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan.
Just briefly, that MAV procurement helped do some of the heavy lifting for this, so they were the one that sort of ended up giving us a short list as per other councils as well, and we then went with that. So thank you, Jeremy, and all your special team in the IT department. You do a great job. So totally supportive of this one. We can't run without computer systems.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is we will of course announce the successful tenderer. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, thank you. So the successful tenderer is Data3 Limited. That's all I need to say? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
thank
Councillor
you,
Duffy.
Data3 Limited, and thank you to the technology team here at council.
The next item is the tender report for amenity mowing services, and I will look for a motion.
Happy to move
Councillor
the
Egan.
motion, Mayor, as per the papers.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Egan.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is especially, I got stopped on the way to council tonight because of our mowing contractors. In fact, I think I've been stopped 3 times today on the roads. But in my ward, as in the Mayor's ward, I think I have 400 square kilometres of roads, and there's a lot of reserves with that. We have council land and roadside. So I'm more than happy to move this motion. I think probably half of my calls during the year, and especially over summer, are about when is council going to do the mowing. So it's great that we're finally getting this tender report done again for the next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne.
Some people say that in Nillumbik the grass is always greener, but it has to be mown. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I would love to see the mowing done by council officers. That's just a value that I have, that council employs people to do the work rather than outsourcing work. This has been outsourced some time ago. I don't begrudge the people that are doing the work. I think they do a great job, and when I see them out doing their mowing, I actually go up and say thank you. And it's surprising how few thank yous the people on the mowers actually get, because they are very responsive to it and are very grateful when I do approach them to say thank you for the work that they're doing. In the report, it says that Council's amenity mowing program includes approximately 700 priority sites. So these are the areas, around our playgrounds, exterior to our ovals and things like that. It covers more than 530 hectares. Thank you very much to the people who do keep our open space areas, our reserves and our roadsides maintained and looking great and being able to be used for recreational amenity. And when these tenders are done, our procurement team and officers have a ranking to doing this is all above board. Councillors don't actually get involved in any of these decisions, just the awarding of the contract. And the process of awarding people looks at things like, percentage of, are they a local business? Are they employing people that live locally? There are many other factors that the officers look at in their recommendations as to how they rank these tenderers. So, I would go with the good work of the officers in choosing the right provider to do this service for us today.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously, and Councillor Egan will name the preferred tenderer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it is green by nature, and I'd just like to say on the back of Councillor Duffy's comments that they have committed to employing 9 people who live in Nillumbik, and we couldn't possibly afford the equipment that this company has. So we just can't do everything that we would like to do.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. It's a great outcome. The next report is contract report for renewable energy supply agreement with VECO. And I'll look for a motion. Councillor Eyre.
I can do that, but I am actually going to go as per the papers. It's quite a lengthy recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Payne. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you. So this report recommends entering into a renewable energy supply agreement, or the RSEA, via the Victorian Energy Collaboration, which is the VECO. So yes, I know lots of acronyms. The Renewable Energy Supply Agreement was established via a public tender back in September 2020, via a collaborative power purchasing agreement, or the PPA, project on behalf of 47 Victorian local government authorities. And I think something is said for when all councils come together to look at projects such as this. It's fantastic. There is now an opportunity for Nillumbik to join the existing agreement referred to as VECO 2. So this is a very exciting opportunity for council for many reasons. Partly because we'll be part of the VECO, but it's also a collaboration of 47 Victorian local governments who signed up to participate and to purchase 100% renewable energy via Red Energy. The good thing here is that Red Energy is owned by Snowy Hydro and is 100% Australian owned. The renewable energy is provided by 2 wind farms in Victoria, and there's more information in the report if you want to find out where they are. And it is the largest emissions reduction project undertaken by the local government sector in Australia. So it's pretty exciting to be part of such a big project. So electricity procured through the VECO 2 is 100% renewable, carbon neutral with associated emissions reduction. So that's really good for our community. We have been formally invited to join, so I think that we'd be silly not to take up this offer. It's such a fantastic opportunity for council and for our shire by joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Councillor Payne.
Just wanted to add that while the solar farm project on Yen Yen Road would have been a great move towards net zero, this contract with VECO gets us into the renewable energy market, supports it and brings savings to Nillumbik, so it's a great thing.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Any other councillors? I'll speak briefly on that one as well. I'm really excited about this particular agreement. This is all part of our climate action plan. couple of years ago we declared a climate emergency, and we made a commitment to work towards net zero as an organisation by 2030, and this is a huge part of achieving that. So if we can get on board with this agreement, then it means that we will have almost all of our electricity coming from renewable energy, and as we move forwards, we'll have opportunities to further electrify our fleet vehicles. There are some vehicles that can't be electrified yet because the technology is not quite there, but that's coming. I think it's coming fast. And I'm really pleased that we're taking this huge step today. I think one really important part of the report is, if you look at point 24, there are no anticipated budget implications for transitioning council's small site electricity accounts with the RSEA. So this comes at no extra cost to the ratepayer, but it's clean energy. We're moving away from fossil fuels, doing the right thing by our community and by the environment and climate. And I think it's a really important step in the right direction. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in making this happen. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. The next item is the contract report for provision of temporary labour hire neutral vendor managed services, and I will look for a motion. Councillor
move that,
Perkins. Councillor Duffy? It's all right, you can move it if you want.
Yeah,
Councillor Duffy?
thank you. That's where I will like to move it as per the papers, so the recommendation as it's written on the screen and in the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I'll look for a seconder. Councillor Perkins. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. Everybody's already heard me talk about how I would much prefer council employing people to do the work here at council. This contract and the use of temporary labour is related to finding staff to assist in the operations centre when needed. It'd be great to have a pool of people that are at home on hand when needed that we could use as council staff, but that's not part of the current arrangement. This is a business as usual replacement with a tender that was in place with the Northern Council Alliance Group. So this is just for a few months in advance of a new process taking place. I'm waffling on here, but this tender is not for a long time, it's for a short time, and then it will be reassessed. So, as per the papers, I'd just like to say I'm supporting this one and would like to make sure that the staff up at the Operations Centre have access to the staff that they need when they need them, because they do a great job, and I don't want to make their work any more difficult by making it easy for them to have staff to help when people are sick and when people are going on holidays. We certainly want to make sure we've got everyone on deck there, and there's a process that's been gone through here to find the right organisation to do that work.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Perkins?
Yeah, just supporting Councillor Duffy there. So we're talking about temporary labour hire, and there was a contract or a public tender process that was undertaken by the Northern Council Alliance Group back in 2019. That tender would have just about finished now, but there's another process that Procurement Australia are going to undertake in 2025. So what we're looking at doing is extending, basically extending business as usual contract, so extending the current labour hire service until 2025, until Procurement Australia run another process. So we'll go through this again in 2025 with Procurement Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously, and Councillor Duffy will name the successful tenderer.
Yes, thank you. The successful tender is Commensura Proprietary Limited. So thank you to Commensura and your staff for helping us fill the gaps when needed at our operations centre.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Beg your pardon?
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. The next item is the informal meetings of councillors' records for the 26th of March 2024, and I will look for a motion. Councillor Egan.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council, in accordance with item 20 of Council's Governance Rule Meeting Procedures, receives the informal meetings of Councillors' records, attachment 1, for the meetings held.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. I'll look for a seconder. Oh, that's a close call, but I'll give it to Councillor Eyre. Councillor Egan.
Nothing much to say here, business as usual. This is about a list of meetings that councillors have with or without staff over a particular time, and there's a list in attachment 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Eyre?
Yes, thank you. It just also shows all the informal meetings that we have in between council meetings. There's obviously a lot more than this, but they are not, they're not required to be reported on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Any other councillors? I'll put that one to the vote. Those in favour? That is carried unanimously. We do have one notice of motion tonight, which is intended to be heard in confidential. There are no delegates' reports and no supplementary or urgent business. However, we do have 2 confidential reports, one for CEO employment matters, and as mentioned, there is the notice of motion, council expenses, legal advice / support. And so I'll look for a motion to move us into confidential. Councillor Payne.
Happy to move that motion to move us into confidential.
As per the papers, Councillor Payne.
As per the papers.
Seconded, Councillor Egan. Councillor Payne? Councillor Egan? Any other councillors? I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you to everyone in attendance tonight. We will now close the gallery for the confidential items.